Now I'm really grateful for that. Who I am now, I'm grateful for that, because who I needed to be when I was younger, I didn't know how to be grateful because that was the pain.
But I guarantee all of you will be so grateful that you did. When you stop falling into the narrative of who you think you're supposed to be and actually start rewriting the script of who you want to be and who you actually are. Welcome to Evolve Ventures, where we are making evolution possible for growth-minded humans through vulnerable lessons, stories, and technology. I am your host, Bianca Thomas.
And I am your host, Emilia Smith. Welcome back to everyone who joins us every single week. Now we have 2 episodes a week. So welcome to our new listeners. We're so excited to dig into this topic. This Thursday, we're going to be diving into 126. Who do you feel you need to be? If you've clicked on this episode, you probably have resonated with the fact that in some way, shape, or form in your life, you have felt this outward pressure to be something other than what you are and other than what your soul kind of feels as though your deepest calling is. And I think that what I would say first is that you're not alone. You know, what you'll find in this episode, Bianca and I have had our own experiences and our own battles with that. And I think that, yes, of course, it's a part of the journey of life, but getting clear as to what that who is and who you actually feel as though you need to be and the why that's underneath that, I think can do so much for someone's journey and can actually be one of the biggest catapults into your deepest life work, one that can be so deeply fulfilling. And part of that is unburdening any part of that outward pressure that you might feel to be someone that you need to be, right? Like unburdening yourself from that expectation, wherever that expectation might feel as though it's coming from. That is a part of the evolving process. So number one, you're not alone. So for my story, so I don't typically go deep into my story too much. Number one, because if you're a new listener, I struggle with memory a lot. And while it's been better than it ever has been before, you know, I'm still piecing together parts of my story. And I think that whether you have a good memory or a bad memory, or you have a memory that's improving, I think that everyone's story is so unique and is so different that when you start to actually look at, you know, the timeline of your life and the story that is who you are and what you're becoming, you realize how much of that, those pieces, the strings of that fabric that's being woven together, your story isn't just crafted by you. Your story ends up being a huge culmination, a mosaic of all of the people that you've been interacting with, all the people that you love and have loved and have lost. You become a huge mosaic of all of your experiences, the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. And so when I started to look, you know, at my story, when it came to this podcasting journey, I know Bianca and I, one of our things is going to have to be talking on this mic and sharing some of our story to be able to help people, number one, know that they're not alone. It scared me, quite frankly, because I was like, well, what the heck is my story, you know, and who do I feel as though I need to be? And what does that mean about me? And so when I started to kind of dig into this for me, I recognized that what was a very similar through line in my experience and in my upbringing is that I always had, and I always felt as though I had a very deep intuitive pull. It wasn't a push, it wasn't a force, but very much of a pull towards being an advocate and an ally for other people who didn't feel as though they could speak up or were too afraid to, or didn't have the courage yet to speak to the injustices that they experienced. So like, for example, I'll give you a very simple example. In college, one of the pulls that I felt like I needed to be a part of and who I needed to be was a woman that would speak out about the injustices around sexual abuse and sexual violence when it comes to D1 athletes and college students, and how very much a lot of those sexual abuse instances get swept underneath the rug to honor the reputation of the athlete. And so I designed this whole step up program that's now, I believe, still in effect at PC, the college that I went to. And,
Wow.
you know, at the time when we were crafting it and pulling it together, I just had such an inspiration to do that because I felt as though I needed to speak up for these women that would, you know, tell and share me their stories about their abuse, about, you know, genuinely like some of the most gut-wrenching things. And well, it was because they were drunk and they, you know, there wasn't consent and blah blah blah, like, but they wouldn't actually speak up to have anything happen, you know, to have anything actually like come out of it because they were too afraid. And so I, you know, when I looked at the through line of my story, I found so many of those what I call magnet moments where people were magnetized to me, sharing their stories, sharing their challenges that they've experienced. And now what do I do with that? Do I just kind of sit around and do nothing? Or do I start to become part of the solution to the problems that people are having? And so when I started to see all these magnet moments of like, oh, okay, I've always felt this pull, and it's felt intuitive, right? It felt intuitive to be more of an advocate and an ally. Why? Because I guess I had the self-belief to like start a program. You know, I guess I had the courage to speak up and talk to professors, talk to police, talk to different people and say, hey, there's something wrong here. We need to start to change. And I guess I had, you know, the courage or the confidence to speak to different partners in the community to actually make movement happen. You know, and when I looked back at that passion, that purpose that I felt deeply called to do, which is very much what we do at, you know, Evolve Ventures, is we help to break open those conversations of vulnerable stories that people aren't having around the dinner table anymore. And quite frankly, maybe never had. I started to see that these passions that I have to help other people and to advocate and be an ally to people who might not feel as though they do have strength to be able to do and speak up for themselves. I realized that a lot of that actually came from some of my biggest pain, who I felt I needed to be in this world. When I started to look at the different magnet moments of my story, I needed to be that way because my biggest pain was exactly that. No one spoke up for me. No one actually was there to, or seemingly it felt that way as I grew up. No one actually spoke my truth, and no one wanted to listen to what my truth was when I was in my deepest, most painful moments. And so when I started to kind of look at that, I said, that's interesting. So when I was going through domestic violence in the same household, when, you know, my brother and my sister were in the same house and that was happening to me, no one came up and checked on me, even though there was a hole punched through the ceiling right next to my face. No one checked on me. You know, why was that? You know, some of my biggest pain came from me trying to be an ally for all these other people. But yet when it came to my most darkest moments, who was there? And I started to dig on this because I think that all of us have a similar story, and it might not be in this thread, but we start to realize that who we feel we need to be was a result of that pain, that no one was that person for us, you know? And I connected so many dots to, you know, upbringing and being an older sister. You got to set the example. You got to be this, you got to be that. And I realized how much outward influence actually had in that quote unquote intuitive pull that I now have to be an advocate and an ally to other people. When I was growing up, I was told messages like, you have to be the example, you know, by so many people, whether it was school teachers, whether it was parents, whether it was family members, like, you know, your sister looks up to you, you know, your brother does this. And your teammates, you know, playing soccer, your teammates look up to you, you know. And while that was such an extraordinary position to have, I didn't necessarily realize the implications of how much outward pressure that actually took on me. And now I'm grateful for it because of what it's cultivated as a result. Who I felt as though I need to be, I've been able to be that person for so many people that never had someone that could be their ally, that could speak up on their behalf, you know, that could actually advocate for them. But it wasn't, you know, as crystal clear And what I thought was intuition, I think I had to have one of those moments where I realized that it was actually, built by so much of the pain that I had. And so many of those tendrils go back to when we first, get started in our childhood. So to this story, I share this vulnerably because I think that had I not looked at the past and had I not looked at these micro or magnet moments, I wouldn't really understand and have the gratitude that I do now today for who I am, because I can look back at my past and say, oh, was it just in pain because I didn't have anyone there for me that I did all these things? And is that more of like a victim mentality, or did I actually start to do something about it? Did I actually make other people's lives better as a result? And I can say, bar none, that who I felt I've needed to be, while it didn't always look, picture perfect, and it wasn't always easy, what might have been an external influence as a result of my pain, who I needed to be, for the example for my team members or my classmates or whoever. Now, I'm really grateful for that. Who I am now, I'm grateful for that, because who I needed to be when I was younger, I didn't know how to be grateful because that was the pain. So B, go into yours.
I think you just completely sidestepped a huge thing in that. I think because you're trying to make it a positive, but I want to touch upon something that you said, because of the messages that you heard that you need to be, like, people look up to you, right? You're the older sister, you're the this, you're the that. You actually didn't talk about your problems.
Very true.
You weren't able to ask for help. You weren't able to reach out and tell people what had happened to you. And it kept you silent and it kept you quiet. And out of the pain of that, you eventually were able to help other people. But the majority of people aren't going to do that. The majority of people end up becoming consumed by their pain. They're consumed by these things that have happened to them because of these stories that they were told about who they had to be. And I want to make sure that I bring that up because, yes, your story turned into a happier ending, but I don't want to disregard the severity of the message that you were told and what ended up happening because of it. Because I know so many of our listeners, and I went through this too, they're currently in that where they have this understanding and this belief of, I need to be this type of person. This is the person that I have to be. I have to be, perfect. I have to be smart, whatever that looks like. I have to be the perfect mother, the perfect father, the perfect partner. I have to be a millionaire in order to be successful. I have to be all of these things. And we cultivate this story of who we need to be because of the lessons that we learned. And that's why so many people are miserable. They're miserable because they're not actually being what they think is right. They're trying to be this person that their culture, their society, their upbringing, their environment is conditioning them to think they need to be. And so you, as a little kid, being told you need to be the leader, you need to be this, you need to be that, it kept you quiet. And it probably was the reason why nobody checked in on you. Like,
woof.
They saw you as this person that didn't need help, probably.
Yeah.
And how many of our listeners are probably going through the same thing where they were taught to be like stoic. They're taught to be just a powerhouse, a force, whatever, right? Whatever the message was that you were told.
Or like the help for other people. Like
Right.
They're the helpers. They're the, aid. They're the advocates, probably.
It's always the people who are helping the most who end up being the one who are suffering the most and need help.
Yeah.
It's like a running joke that all therapists were people who needed help and they just decided to go into the helper profession. Right? Like, I didn't get help, so let me become this and I can help other people.
Yeah.
who you need to be, who you feel you need to be, is a byproduct of your conditioning. It is the stories, the lessons, the messages that you were brought up being told, and most of us did not choose this. I was taught that I needed to be a perfect little Middle Eastern girl who was quiet and presentable, and the word like mrattab in Arabic, it means like well put together, right? It means like perfect in a sense, right? It's like, it's just well put together. And I sure as shit was not that. I was reckless as a kid. Like my nickname was Monkey for a reason. Like I literally was a monkey. I was jumping all over the place like a wild child.
How do you say that in your language?
Monkey?
Yeah.
I mean, there's not like a legit word for monkey, but I was called like a hamara, which means a donkey. It means like dumbass.
Oh my God.
No, but I was nuts. And that was just who I was. But when I'm being told, no, you need to be dainty, you need to be feminine, you need to be this, you need to be that, you need to be a girl. I built such like a disdain for it. To where even today, I hate the color pink.
Same, girl.
Won't do it.
Working
Won't
on
do
it.
Nope, I'm not going to work on it. I hate the color pink. Like I don't wear it. I don't have it in my apartment. Nothing. Because of the association. You need to be this. So I resented it.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I resented a lot of like the feminine roles and why I had such a negative relationship with being a girl. Not that I wanted to transition or anything, but I like my identity, like I felt odd. I felt off. I didn't feel right or like I belonged because I was told for so long that I needed to be this type of person and I didn't fit it. So for everyone listening to this who's like, God, me too. Like I don't actually think I'm supposed to be this person. I think that there's things that I'm dismissing that I actually want, or things that I'm suppressing that I actually want. Like I just got off the phone with a client and she'll know who she is when I bring this up. She was always into fitness. So everyone around her was like, you should go into athletic training. Went to school, first year, studied athletic training and was like, oh my God, I hate this. I literally want to rip my hair out. And ended up realizing, oh, I don't actually want that. I want to go into business.
Yeah.
So now she's going into business.
Heck yeah.
But that wouldn't have happened if she didn't have the conversation with me and we didn't get to like really talk that through and understand this is actually causing you more harm than good.
Yeah.
So for everyone listening to this right now who is feeling that, who is feeling like my life doesn't fit the person that I am. I know I lived that way for so many years. Here's what I will say, and we'll give some suggestions for everyone listening. The first thing that I would have you do, try to become aware of the situations you're putting yourself in because you feel like you have to, not because you actually want to. Try to get clarity around that. What are the things that I'm doing? What are the scenarios that I'm going to? Who are the people that I'm spending my time with that I'm not doing it out of a genuine sense of, I want this, but out of a sense of obligation of, well, because of my family, I have to spend time with this person, or because I'm Middle Eastern, I have to go to school for this specific thing, or whatever the case may be, right? But try to gain clarity around those situations, those people, places, and things that you're putting yourself into because you feel like you have to and not because you actually want to. And then the second piece of advice that I would give you is try to learn who you actually are. When you find yourself having that internal pull of, I want to go do this, but I feel like I have to do this, try to gain, stillness in that moment and try to understand what's the dialogue that you're having that's making you feel like you can't do the thing you actually want. And work through that and process through that and try to start implementing doing the things you actually want and not the things you feel like you have to do. Something that I do with all of my clients is something called a thought record. What are the thoughts you're having about the scenarios that you're in? What are the interpretations? What are the meanings? What are the ideas and the images that come up when you think of this thing or when you engage in this thing? And how do you feel? Most of us know when we're out of alignment, but we try to convince ourselves that it's not because of the stories of who we need to be, of who we believe we have to be. And when you can start to gain clarity around that and start to recognize, oh, I'm telling myself this story that I have to do this, but I don't want to. I want to go do that thing. Well, then you can work on the dialogue that you're having with yourself and help you be able to go do what you actually want. And it is so goddamn uncomfortable. Like, in all honesty, when you start doing those things, it is not comfortable. Like, it is,
Nope.
It's uncomfortable and it's awkward and you're going to feel wrong and you're going to feel selfish. I can't tell you the amount of times I've been told that I'm selfish because I did what was in my best interest for the first time. And I stopped doing what other people said I needed to do. But they all eventually got over it, and I was able to actually be self-expressed in my actions and my behaviors and in who I am. So it's going to feel uncomfortable at first, but I guarantee all of you will be so grateful that you did. When you stop falling into the narrative of who you think you're supposed to be and actually start rewriting the script of who you want to be and who you actually are.
There's a book that I would highly suggest. Change Your Story, Change Your Life by I believe it's Kendra Hall. That one, to the narrative point that you just mentioned, being this last thing I'll say here, it's fascinating how much that, like with my clients, like in the situation where there's a very strong pull, sometimes it almost comes from a place of like a need. Like I need, like for example, when I was in college and I like needed to make sure I created a bystander intervention program, like it was a strong need that like nothing could get in my way. It was happening. Literally nothing and no one. It was happening. That, in hindsight now, was such a need from a scarce place. And I convinced myself of the story that if I did not do this, then I was a bad person.
Wow.
If I do not stand up for women who have been abused, taken advantage of, insert the blank here, then who am I? I'm not deserving of my life. I had a very strict if-then statement. That was the story that a part of me was telling me, which actually was driving all of my actions in retrospect, in crafting the story of this advocate and ally. So this part, though it had really great intentions, when I started to look at the if-then statement that was so needy, it really, really got down to it, to your point. I needed actual help. I needed help. And I crafted such a strict story that guided my behavior and my actions in a specific way. And if I went outside of that, the story convinced all the other parts of me to realize that like you are outside of alignment if you're not advocating and if you're not being an ally and if you're not helping people grow and if you're not doing that. That drastic if-then statement, if anyone else is out there and has ever had that, you're not alone. And that is a result of some deep, deep pain that you have had. And while your pain can turn into your biggest purpose, I believe it's so important to explore that so that you're not just driving with a blindfold on, letting this part that is so deeply in pain just be so like headstrong through everything. Because while there's a benefit in that for so many people, sometimes that actually pulls away from actually getting to the root of the biggest challenge and pain point that you have in your life. And I think that to unburden that is a whole nother story. So anyhow, my final takeaway in this episode is to understand that who you feel you need to be, that narrative is created from a deep, deep pain point. that deserves to be honored and looked at. And to what Bianca said, like really explored from a very compassionate, loving place. B, what about you?
You hit the nail on the head. Yeah, episode suggestion.
I appreciate you calling me out earlier in the episode too. Appreciate that. Listeners need that.
I got you.
We keep it raw and real, y'all. Episode suggestion 122. Why do I feel so insecure? This will hopefully be a great jump off for anyone who realizes that they might be in a similar situation, you know, because if I look back at those magnet moments, I was so out of security because I didn't know my pain. The pain was driving, not the purpose. And I convinced myself otherwise. What's your episode suggestion? 70.
Your need for belonging is screwing you. We love that episode.
We really do. It's like absolutely everything. The work that we're bringing to the world. Like if you just look at that, it's like, oh, that's where all the roots start.
Yeah, seriously.
All right, our friends, we are going to be recording and launching 127 next to you. It's going to be a Motivation Monday episode, how to set boundaries around your schedule. So if you're excited and struggle with that, tune in Monday and we shall see you then.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.